Hello everyone, I'm Hoai Ca. Continuing the story from the previous episode, today I have a day in the forest to pick fruit for my mother to sell at the market.
The baby who was injured the day before has shown signs of better recovery. But today there is something unpleasant and has to be hospitalized. Is that a serious matter?
Now what should we do? Our son has a high fever and is not eating.
He refuses to eat anything.
In the cool mist of an early morning, Hoai Ca stands before her audience, her voice gentle yet earnest as she greets everyone. It's been a while, not long, not short, but I really miss you. Her words, sincere and heartfelt, hang in the air, an invitation into the fragments of everyday life she is about to unfold. She wishes her viewers health and peace, a subtle nod to the preciousness of these things in her world. The day has barely broken when the first interactions begin inside a modest rural home. The house is already alive with activity. An uncle appears by the door, his steps hurried. Hoai Ca asks about his plans so early in the morning. "I went to the city for a little something," he replies, his voice carrying a hint of fatigue. She, in turn, answers his question. She has just taken Tony, a little boy, to school. "Did Ha do anything today, Uncle, that you had to take Tony?" she wonders. The uncle shakes his head. Ha went to work early, as always. In this household, each adult carries a burden, each gesture and errand a testament to the web of care that holds them together. Breakfast preparations are already underway. Grandma, another gentle presence in the house, is up and about. "You go, Grandma, I'll take you home." However, Grandma brushes aside the offer. She can walk. She prefers not to trouble the others. But Hoai Ca insists. "Let me take you home. Walking is tiring. Baby, wake up, wash your face, then eat breakfast. Let me help." She gently coaxes the sleepy child out of bed and helps wash his face, her hands steady with the patience gleaned from years of caretaking. As she tends to the child, Hoai Ca checks on his health. "Do your feet still hurt a lot? Do you feel better now?" she asks tenderly. Grandma has already mentioned that the child doesn't need to have his legs wrapped anymore. His injuries are almost healed. Relief flashes briefly over Hoai Ca's face. "Soon you can go out with your friends," she reassures, pouring warm water into a basin to wash his face. The family is gathered together for breakfast, the meal simple but shared with obvious affection. Afterward, the daily responsibilities beckon. "After you eat, stay home and be good," says Hoai Ca to the boy. "Sister and grandmother still go to work." The child nods, understanding that the rhythm of work and caretaking is a dance everyone must participate in. The scene shifts as another family friend, referred to as Uncle, pays them a visit. He inquires about the boy, checking if he's awake. The child, now sitting upright, greets him with a sleepy smile. They exchange news. Uncle had to go down to the district for some business and met Grandma along the way. "I will take Grandma home, and then I'll come in to play," he says. An air of relief fills the room as Uncle declares, "I feel my leg is better now." Grandma affirms his progress. "Your leg today. You don't need to wrap it anymore. Just take medicine," she says. "Let Grandma get some water to wash your face." Hoai Ca had already tended to him earlier, but the ritual of care brings comfort to both child and adult. The family's concern is palpable, spun from love, hardship, and the knowledge that well-being is often only temporary in their world. Sitting in this kitchen, amid the smells of cooked rice and hushed morning conversations, the talk inevitably drifts back to the realities of work. "Let his mother pick him up and teach him to walk here," Grandma muses. Hoai Ca, busy with her own work, agrees it's for the best if the boy stays at home to heal under his mother's care before returning to the outside world. There is a brief mention of charity. Grandma seems to be the type to help whenever she can. To her, giving anonymously to those in need is simply too wonderful. Now that the boy can walk again, it is time for his mother to practice with him. "Take the medicine home. Let my mother boil it for me to drink. That will be much more convenient," she decides. The morning continues. Business and work hover at every threshold. A key family member is described as the pillar of the household, responsible for providing for everyone since Grandma is now old and unable to work. "He has a stable job. So good. I really want that," Grandma says wistfully. She recalls Ha renting their current house for a long time. Even before he left for work, he planned carefully for Tony's schooling. The layers of concern are not only for the children, but span the generations. Grandma asks for help so that Hoai Ca can go out, expressing her worry yet acknowledging that everyone pitches in to keep the family afloat. "Our family has so much work. Each person has one leg and one hand. You don't have to be polite," says Grandma, her voice laced with pride and resignation. As the conversation continues, Hoai Ca observes that Uncle's complexion doesn't look good today. After a moment's hesitation, he confides that he is planning to get a health checkup, an admission that worries everyone present. He's been waking up feeling unwell, with chest tightness and trouble breathing. He tried calling friends to accompany him to the hospital, but none could get time off work. "I'll go alone and see how I feel," he declares. The others protest, offering to accompany him, but he insists there's nothing they can do if the doctors want to speak to his relatives, and he would rather spare them the trouble. Still, anxiety mounts on all sides. "If anything happens, I'll call you," Uncle promises, sensing their worry. The family gently insists, "If you need us, call." With reassurances made, he prepares for the trip. The journey to the hospital is far, and there will no doubt be a long queue of patients ahead of him. Plans are made, numbers exchanged, and finally, he leaves, shouldering the weight of his own fears, as well as those of the household he leaves behind. Back in the kitchen, Hoai Ca and the others focus once more on breakfast and the children. "Uncle, have you finished feeding? Let's have breakfast together. I'll get the baby some food first. Uncle, feed him a bit, and then it will be done." "Yes, I will eat rice and then take medicine," she says. The conversations are repetitive and comforting, the rituals of a household keeping itself steady through small acts of nourishment and encouragement. The child is shy about eating, but slowly, with much coaxing, he finishes his bowl of rice. "Try to eat and take medicine. You will be able to go home with your mother soon. In 2 to 3 days, I will tell your mother to pick you up," promises Hoai Ca. The day's immediate goal is simple, almost primal: to heal, to eat, to regain strength. The boy, now well enough to move his legs, is encouraged to try. "Move your legs. Let Grandma see. Today you can move much stronger." Grandma is thrilled, beaming with pride at every small advancement. After a while, the meal finished. Everyone settles back, a rare pause in their otherwise bustling lives. "I'm full," the boy sighs, sitting down to let his food settle before lying down to rest. Soon the rhythm of work resumes. "Eat rice, let's eat rice," urges Grandma, reminding everyone that the cycles of nourishment and rest remain constant no matter what. She invites everyone to the table, reinforcing the sense of togetherness at the heart of their family. As the morning stretches into day, new plans are made. "What are we going to do today, Uncle?" the child asks. You just stay home and rest today, comes the answer. Yet outside, work is never far away. Uncle mentions heading out to see if people are interested in buying longan, a tropical fruit grown on the hill behind the house. The orchard is their lifeline, and selling its harvest, if the price is right, could mean much-needed income for the family. If people buy the whole hill, then we'll sell it and let people pick it themselves, so it won't be so hard. Right now, the two of us work. It's very hard, says Uncle, underscoring the physical labor required for these tasks. After lunch, talk returns to the logistics of selling fruit. If you can sell it for a good price, then sell the whole lot. If you can't, then I think selling retail will make more money. Decisions hang in the air, shaped by past experience and present uncertainty. If they buy the whole hill at a reasonable price, I'll sell it. If not, we can sell it by weight at the market. The topic drifts to other produce on the hill. There are sour ears, perhaps another local fruit or an herb. Often people buy them to slice and dry for gradual consumption. Last year they picked from a tree farther away, but this year it's too far. Is there a house in this area that has that tree? Let me go and harvest it, someone suggests. It turns out Mrs. Bin's house, about 2 kilometers away, has such a tree. The fruit is ripe and ready for picking. They call her and she says to go ahead. She's not home, but they're welcome to harvest what they need and pay her later. It's a lucky break, the sort of communal trust that helps rural families get by when times are lean. The workday truly begins as the women set out to pick fruit, plan sales, and look after the healing child left at home. This, then, is how life unfolds for Hoai Ca's family. Through illness and worry, meals and recovery, negotiation and hard work, all against the backdrop of love and responsibility that binds them together. The sun climbed a little higher over the humble homes and fields as part 2 of this country tale unfolded. While the morning chores and worries had already set the tone for a day woven from both hope and anxiety, the tempo of rural life refused to slow. Through winding village paths and fruit-laden hills, the lived realities of Hoai Ca and her family began to crystallize, a delicate, persistent negotiation with fate, fortune, and each other. The chores of the morning were never truly done. As Hoai Ca tidied up after breakfast, cleaned the dishes, and soothed the aches of the healing child, thoughts turned to the matters at hand, especially the longan orchard stretching behind their home. The air was tinged with both the sweetness of fruit and the pressing anxiety of making ends meet. The hill, with its more than 50 trees, was the subject of new negotiations. The fruit, though fragrant and sweet, was sparse this season. Fertilizer was expensive, and the family simply couldn't afford it this year, leaving the trees with fewer, smaller, but still delicious fruits. Every tree, every cluster of fruit, felt like a quiet testament to both the land's generosity and the family's struggle. As the idea of selling the longan crop in bulk solidified, another villager, referred to as Sister, appeared, her presence practical and direct. "Do you want to buy my longan hill?" she asked the local fruit buyer who had come through the area. The conversation played out against a backdrop of mutual need and gentle haggling. "How much per kilo?" asked the buyer, genuinely interested but already calculating costs and labor in her mind. "If you want to pick it and buy it from me, it's 15,000 VND per kilo. If you buy the whole hill, we'll have to go see how many trees there really are," replied the sister, her tone matter of fact, but with the underlying tension of someone used to making do. Together, they ventured out to inspect the orchard. The buyer carefully eyed the clusters of longan. "The fruit is small, the crop is sparse. Harvesting this lot will take a lot of work, and your family's too busy to even tend to the hill the way others do. You can see the result," she commented, her honesty brusque but free of malice. The offer on the table was 5,000 VND for the whole hill, an amount that the sister argued was too low for the effort and love put in, despite understanding the buyer's reasoning. "The fruit's sweet. Taste it yourself. But it's true, the trees don't yield as they might with more care," she conceded. "Next year, if I can get fertilizer, the fruit will be better. For now, I just need to get what I can." Back and forth the negotiation went, neither side wanting to appear desperate, both fully aware of the dictates of necessity. Add another 2,000 VND if you can. Otherwise, maybe I'll sell it by weight at the market. It's more work for me, but if I have to, I will, the sister insisted, unwilling to accept a deal that felt like a loss. But the buyer, well aware of the market and the expenses of hiring workers to harvest scattered fruit, shook her head. At 5,000 VND, it's barely worth the effort for me either. If that doesn't work for you, sell it retail if you can. With an air of resignation, they parted ways, the promise and frustration of the orchard lingering. No deal struck that morning, but the rhythm of work pressed on. The family and villagers returned home, tending to their routines, some to prepare more fruit for market, others to check on the healing child, or catch up on the endless chores that kept their small community running. Amid these comings and goings, worries quietly multiplied. The hero, the family member who had gone to the hospital for his troubling chest pain and shortness of breath, remained on everyone's mind. With the family so reliant on each pair of hands, no matter how small the contribution, a health scare like his cast a pall over the day's efforts. Granny, especially, was anxious. Each time her phone rang, her heart skipped. Was this news from the hospital? Good or bad? She prayed quietly, hoping that all would turn out well, that this minor crisis would not upend the fragile balance they managed to maintain. As the midday hour approached, transactions continued. A neighbor who had been selling flowers and fruit stopped by to chat. Together, they discussed the prospects of the season, the changing fortunes of the marketplace, and the little tricks for stretching their earnings. Hoai Ca's family was not alone. Each home in the area had their own trees to sell, remedies to brew, or struggles with market prices uncomfortably low this year. Throughout the day, too, was the practical matter of the child's recovery. Exercises were woven in with chores, encouraging the boy to practice walking so he could soon go home to his mother. The efforts were patient, loving. Practice a lap, take a break, fan yourself, rest a bit, then try again. Encouragement came as a chorus. Just practice gradually, bit by bit, and you'll get used to it. Don't overdo it. You're doing so well. Each word was a thread reinforcing the family's commitment to healing, no matter how small the step. Exhaustion crept in but was never fully acknowledged. Meals, though plain, marked the passages of time and the unity of the home. A bowl of fried rice was met with quiet approval. "Is your fried rice delicious?" asked with just enough delight to make the boy smile and take the next bite. Grandma checked on everyone, ensuring they'd eaten, that chores were done, that there was always just enough to get through one more day. As afternoon wore on, the efforts to sell fruit continued. The prospect of selling sour ears, likely a colloquial name for a local fruit or herb, became a new avenue for income. Calls were made, permissions granted, baskets fetched. There was an undercurrent of urgency. Sell what you can before someone else beats you to the gathering. "If I don't call early, someone else will get there before me," they remarked, voices edged with the competitiveness born of scarcity. The walk to Mrs. Bin's house, where a sour ear tree waited, was both practical and symbolic, a reminder that in the countryside, survival depended on neighborly trust as much as one's own labor. With the harvest secured, the fruit was soon destined for market, with plans made for boiling, drying, and selling, each method a calculated bid for a better return. But not all plans could be executed perfectly. Some days the market was slow, and the fruit unsold would come home to be sliced and dried for family use or given to neighbors in need. Even in disappointment, they found ways to stretch the bounty. And still, the thoughts of those left behind persisted. How was the hero at the hospital? Was the diagnosis grim, or could things return to normal soon? A borrowed phone, a quick call, and finally, a soothing answer. "I'm fine. I'm still normal. I'll be back soon. Don't worry." Relief was palpable. "Thank God," as Grandma whispered in gratitude. For a while longer, at least, the family's pillars would endure. As twilight beckoned, the humble home filled once more with stories, hopes, and small victories of a day survived. In this rural world, each bowl of rice, each completed errand, each careful negotiation was a minor miracle. Cares were ever present, but so too was a sense of unity, persistence, and grace. As the late afternoon sun mellowed into a warm amber, casting long, soft shadows across the countryside, the quiet rhythm of Hoai Ca's world took on new depth and texture. In this corner of the world, far from the bustle of the city, life was an intricate tapestry of small triumphs and daily endurance. The weight of responsibility, the tenderness of care, and the unspoken bonds forged through shared hardship all wove together to sustain this family through the weeks, the months, and the seasons. The house, though modest, was the nucleus of their lives, a shelter from the uncertainties that roamed outside, a place where stories, love, worries, and laughter mingled in the spaces between chores and meals. The faint scent of steamed rice lingered in the air, mingling with the faint aroma of drying longan and herbs. These scents were reminders that even in scarcity, life continued, stubborn and sweet, like the fruit laid carefully on woven mats to dry under the fading sun. The family's livelihood depended on these gifts of the earth, their bones and backs bent in gratitude and toil. Inside, Hoai Ca moved with the familiarity of someone bearing the quiet burden of care. Her hands swept the floor of the main room with a rhythm learned from years of daily work, a motion almost meditative now, a way to ground herself amid the swirling anxieties of the day. She glanced over at the boy, the little one whose healing journey had become the family's central focus. His legs stretched out before him, slightly swollen but steadily improving with every cautious step. Hoai Ca's heart tugged between hope and worry each time he tried to walk, every small movement a fragile victory. "Tired yet?" she asked softly. He shook his head, determination sparking in his dark eyes. "No. I want to get better." "Good. Just keep trying. Bit by bit. Don't rush it," she said, her voice both firm and tender. In her mind, she imagined the day when he could run and play with the neighborhood children, unburdened by pain or fear. But the recovery was slow, painful at times, and filled with setbacks. After one lap around the small tiled floor, he sat down carefully, his breath coming in shallow bursts. Hoai Ca helped him to a stool, fanning him gently with an old woven palm leaf fan, a small reprieve that spoke of their enduring hope. Outside, the village was alive with its usual murmurs, the buzz of insects, the distant bleating of goats, the occasional bark of a dog, and the faint sounds of children laughing and chasing each other through the rice paddies. For all the weight inside the household, life outside continued with a simple, stubborn pulse. The afternoon's tasks were many. The orchard's fruit had been harvested earlier that week, but now the work shifted to sorting, preparing, and preserving the harvest. A task woven with both urgency and care. Hoai Ca gathered her sister, and together they began the familiar ritual of separating the longan and the so-called sour ears, a local fruit cherished for both eating fresh and drying for later use. The sour ears, a fruit with a tangy bite that many in their village prized, were carefully sliced into thin strips. These would be dried in the sun, then packaged to sell at the market, or sometimes exchanged for household goods. Food had a cycle here, not just in growth and harvest, but in preservation. To dry was to extend, to stretch the bounty through leaner days yet to come. The labor was demanding but necessary, an ancient rhythm passed down through generations. "We have to be careful with these," Hoai Ca said as she worked, her fingers nimble and sure despite a lifetime of use. "Too thick and they won't dry well, too thin and they break." Her sister nodded, sweat beading on her forehead despite the waning heat and steady breeze. They worked side by side, occasionally exchanging quiet words that spoke volumes about their shared life. The market was tough this year, prices lower than usual, buyers fewer and more cautious. Every scrap of fruit was precious, every sale vital. "Did you hear from Mrs. Bin, the sour ear tree at her place?" "She said it's ready. We can go pick tomorrow morning. She trusts us to take what we need and pay later." A murmur of relief spread between them. This kind of trust was priceless in a world where cash was scarce and generosity often meant survival. Meanwhile, in the house, the healing boy's exercises punctuated the day. Each step he took was weighed with effort. Each grimace in pain met with a steady stream of encouragement. "You're doing so well. Your legs are stronger today than yesterday," Grandma said, settling close to him during a break. "Yes, and soon. Soon you will walk better than before," added Hoai Ca with a smile that belied the exhaustion in her own body. They knew the road ahead was long, but kept faith in progress, however slow. Beyond the family, the wider world of the village played out in the background. The earlier negotiations over the longan orchard had left a residue of tension and hope. The buyer's offer of 5 million VND was not enough to cover the costs of labor and fertilizer that the family couldn't presently afford, but desperately needed. The sisters' insistence on a slightly higher price echoed the broader reality. Families like theirs, holding tight to land and tradition, constantly balanced on the edge of economic hardship. "There's honor in this work we do," Hoai Ca had said earlier that morning, "and peace in the earth beneath our feet, even if it's hard." At the same time, practical needs demanded compromise. Selling by weight, a slower, less profitable path, was becoming an unwanted option, born not from desire but necessity. The longan fruit's sweetness was a reminder of what nature gave freely, but the realities of cash and market prices made hope fragile. The village market itself was an ecosystem of relationships and barter, where sellers like Hoai Ca's family mingled with buyers, neighbors, and traveling merchants. Word spread quickly about prices, about crop yields, about who was selling and for how much. A slight breeze of competition often tinged each conversation, but a shared hardship bound everyone together in subtle ways. That afternoon, a neighbor stopped by to check in, a woman known for selling flowers and fruits regularly. She brought news from the market and stories from elsewhere in the village, weaving a connection among the different households, striving toward the same goals. "We have a good harvest this year, but the prices, they aren't," she confided, her voice dropping low in frustration. Hoai Ca nodded, careful not to show discouragement. "If the price falls too low, we might as well dry it all and keep it for later." Her neighbor smiled, a small gesture of solidarity in a world where hope had to be shared to survive. Yes, drying preserves the season's strength. As the afternoon bled into early evening, worries about the family member at the hospital re-emerged. With Ha away at work and the hero still recovering, the family's emotional landscape was marked by cautious optimism but persistent anxiety. Grandma, aged and stoic, carried this worry quietly but visibly. Her prayers filled the air with a kind of sacred urgency, whispered supplications for healing and protection, a language older than words. The phone was a lifeline. Calls to the hospital were frequent but tentative, each ring holding a mix of hope and dread. Finally, under the soft yellow glow of a hanging lamp, a call brought the awaited reassurance. "He says he's fine, just tired," Grandma murmured, her voice trembling slightly with relief. "Thank God," the family echoed softly. In that single moment, exhaustion gave way to gratitude, tension softened to quiet hope. With that news came a sense of renewed purpose. The boy's recovery suddenly felt less fragile, the harvest's struggles less daunting. The family, tied together by love and necessity, found strength in this brief brightening of their world. But still, challenges loomed. The weather forecasts hinted at rain. If the longan and sour ears could not finish drying, all their hard work could be undone. Market prices could shift unpredictably, and the demands of caring for a convalescing child were unending. Yet, even with burdens heavy, moments of light punctuated the days. The boy's shy smiles when he managed a step, the shared meals seasoned with small jokes and laughter, the community's silent support, all these were threads holding the family's tapestry intact. That evening, as darkness settled in and the village grew quiet under a starry sky, Hoai Ca sat outside the house for a moment of stillness. The soft chirping of crickets and the cool breeze spoke of the world beyond immediate struggles, a reminder of enduring cycles and distant hope. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, but also new chances. The sour ears awaited picking. The plans for market sales needed refining. The boy's next steps toward health awaited practice. And through it all, the family's quiet resolve burned steadily, steadfast, unyielding, shaped by years of endurance and love. In this humble home, nestled between fields and hills, the heart of life continued to beat with rich complexity, fragile beauty, and a promise yet to be fulfilled. As night deepened over the village, a soothing quiet settled across the fields and homes, wrapping Hoai Ca's family in a fragile but comforting blanket of rest. Yet beneath this stillness, the pulse of life within their modest house never truly ceased. The day's end was a pause, not a stop, a moment to breathe before the inevitable duties and hopes of tomorrow rose again with the sun. The healing boy, now resting more comfortably in his bed, had traversed a difficult day punctuated by small victories. Each step taken, each ache endured, a testament to resilience not only in his body but in the hearts of all who loved him. Grandma lingered near, her eyes heavy with weariness but bright with unwavering faith. "Sleep well tonight," she whispered softly, brushing a stray lock of hair from his brow. There was a sacredness to this simple act, a gesture loaded with generations of maternal and grandmotherly love. Tomorrow, even better steps. Outside, the village breathed in the coolness of night, stars sparkling in an ancient sky that seemed to hold both the weight of all that had been and the promise of what might still come. For all its hardships, this patch of earth was home, its soil soaked with the toil, laughter, tears, and stories of families tightly bound together. Inside the home, Hoai Ca sat quietly alongside her sister, the fatigue from the day pressing gently on their shoulders but never quite breaking their spirit. They spoke in hushed tones, planning the next day, what fruits to harvest, what tasks to divide, how to manage the ever-fluctuating market demands. There was no room for despair, only for steady hope and pragmatic resolve. The hero, who had frightened them all by his sudden illness, remained the focal point of their prayers and thoughts. Though reassured by a cautious doctor's word, the shadow of uncertainty lingered. Every cough or breath seemed fragile. His health was a thread holding together more than just his body. It was entwined with the futures of those who relied on him. Yet even as worry gnawed at them, moments of laughter erupted unexpectedly, lightening the otherwise solemn atmosphere. An old joke recalled, a shared memory revived, the boy's quiet giggle at a gentle tease. These were the quiet triumphs, that spark of joy when the world's weight is briefly forgotten, draped in familial love and warmth. Morning came with a fresh palette of light, soft and golden, spilling into the house as the family stirred gently back to life. The chores resumed, collecting the ripe sour ears from Mrs. Bin's tree, slicing and drying fruit, coaxing the boy through careful physical therapy routines. The air was tinged again with the fragrance of ripe fruit and wood smoke from the cooking fire, a sensory backdrop to their lived experience. Negotiations for the long-gone orchard still hung in the background of their minds. The initial offer had been low, but the family remained hopeful that fair value could yet be found. They would continue to sell by weight if necessary, but their hearts were fixed on preserving dignity and honoring the fruits of their labor. At the market, neighbors and villagers exchanged news, prices, and small courtesies. These moments of communal interaction punctuated a life often isolated by circumstance, but bound together by shared need and understanding. Hoai Ca's family, like many others, navigated this delicate dance daily, balancing profit and pride, survival and simplicity. Through it all, love persevered, sometimes buried amid exhaustion, sometimes shining clear and bright, a force that sustained the family through sleepless nights and endless tasks. As days passed, the boy's health improved steadily. Each successful attempt to walk brought cheers tempered by cautious hope. The promise of reunion with his mother became more real with every small milestone crossed. And though the path ahead was still lined with uncertainty, of health, of harvests, of livelihood, the family's unity and determination gave them strength beyond what words could express. Grandma, often silent and stoic, revealed her deepest strength in quiet moments, a gentle touch, a steady hand, a prayer offered without expectation. Hoai Ca and her sister carried the visible load, but it was these unseen supports, woven into every household task and every shared breath, that held the family upright. In this final stretch, the story of Hoai Ca's family is not one of grand gestures or dramatic turns, but of everyday courage. The courage to face illness without giving in to despair, to negotiate hard prices without losing pride, to care for one another despite weariness. Their lives were marked by the slow accumulation of small victories, a healed step, a good sail, a moment of laughter amid tears. And when the boy finally stood steady enough to take a few unsupervised steps, the room filled with quiet applause and tears. It was not just his triumph, but the family's, a shared victory born of love, patience, and unyielding perseverance. As the sun dipped below the horizon and their home settled once more into stillness, the family closed their eyes with a shared sense of gratitude for health regained, for bonds deepened, for the unspoken promise that no matter what tomorrow would bring, they would face it together. This was the heartbeat of their story, a testament not only to survival, but to the profound strength found in the unvarnished, often unseen moments of a life well lived.